So I think we're good now. Okay, just some quick things, some common, I gotta move this Zoom link out of the way first. There we go. Some common questions I have at the beginning of this class. One is, where are due dates? We do not have due dates. I had that question probably 100 times last week. Maybe not that many, but for all my classes, that was it. Like, when are things due? And I get that because we don't want to be late, especially the first week, but no due dates. So what I do recommend though is that I do have a proposed course timeline that's out there. We do 6 chapters. We have a midterm and a final. And everything's out there so you can work ahead. I would take at least do 1 chapter about every 2 weeks, and that chapter 1 might not take that long, but as we get into the more complex labs, they do end up taking a while. You end up struggling, or you have questions, or it just takes a bit to go back and forth, especially in the online environment where you're reading something and trying to code something and figure it out. So we have 6 chapters, midterm and a final, so that works out to about 1 chapter every 2 weeks. But if you're, plan your schedule however you want. If you're late, don't worry, I don't take off late points. I don't have any schedule. The only thing that we have to follow is the attendance policy. So in the first, let me make sure that goes away. In the welcome module, there is a required course check-in survey. Make sure, especially in the online class, that you all do that, because I have to report to the college that you're participating, and I will do that this week, because it if not, then you'll get removed from the class. So make sure you're either turning something in or you're doing this course check-in survey. And then about every couple weeks, I'll throw out another survey, or I'll check to see if you're submitting things. If you're behind, or if you haven't turned anything in for a couple weeks, that's when you want to take the time, message me, send me a text message or an email message, and let me know what's going on. Tell me you're still participating in the class, and you'll be fine. But if you don't do anything, if you don't turn anything in for multiple weeks in a row, I don't hear anything from you, then you fall into that category of not participating. So make sure you remember you're taking an online class and you have to do some work, basically, is how that comes out to. Whoops, sorry, I know I have the smallest PC, so I hope everybody can see okay when they're watching this, or zoom in. I'll try to enlarge it or zoom in as we go, but I have all of the modules out there. I think I have the midterm there. And the final exam as well. So you can work ahead if you want. The first thing that I want you to do with last week and this week is to really get into Zybooks, get your account set up so that you can begin the chapter 1 material. We can meet again with Zoom next week. If you finish chapter 1 by the end of next week, that's great timing, ready to move on with chapter 2 the following week. But with Zybooks, what you need to do is to get your account paid for either at the GRCC bookstore or online through Zybooks directly. It's a little cheaper if you buy it through Zybooks, but you can use your financial aid or scholarship dollars. You can use your financial aid or scholarship dollars through the bookstore. So they will, I think they email you a code, and then check your student email, or if you have your personal email on file with the college, check that email as well. And then you can activate your Zybooks account, and then that gives you access to all of the chapters. But if you need a week, or if you haven't purchased that yet, still create your Zybooks account, because you do have access to chapter 1 for free. In order to go on to chapter 2, you need to buy it. So you can get started even if you need to put off a little bit on buying it. Let me see how many students. So I have 30, I have 3 classes. There's about 65, 70 people in total that are going to be in here. And so far 39 people have subscribed. So that's good. That's a good number, but there's still 20 people out there missing somewhere. So make sure you guys create your account. This is I'm talking to you guys out there, so that you can get started. Over here in Zybooks, you see the assignment tab. These list the assignments, but basically how it works is there's go back out of here. Oh, someone else is coming in. More people joining. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna go to my reporting. So by the way, you can either if you have questions, you can just interrupt me, or you can put something in the chat. I think it'll pop up. I'm not looking at the face, you guys, online, because I have a really small laptop, so I had to put that window off to the side. But so just interrupt me if you have questions. But how Zybooks works is there's labs. It starts with participation. So the orange colored things in a chapter are participation assignments. And what you do with those is it walks you through something, and then you answer something, or you do something. So you're participating as you read the book. It's more like an interactive textbook. Instead of just reading something in the book, it's interactive. So that's the participation points. And when you look at the assignments, and what you have to do, pretty much for chapters 1 through 6, we do all of the participation assignments. We also do all of the challenge assignments. So that's part of your grade. And then for the labs, the first few chapters, we do almost all of the labs, but I don't, as we get on into some of the ending chapters, chapter 5 and 6, we don't do all of the labs. So you want to look, you can always do them all, but you want to look at that assignment list that's either here in Zybooks or in Blackboard. I put it here inside of our class. If you go to the assignments tab, it's up here at the top, and it downloads a Word document. It's a list of all of the assignments. This is what you do, what you end up seeing inside of Zybooks here. So these are all of the things in chapter 1. These are participation, and then the challenges, and then the labs that you have to do. So you'll see like the labs 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. But as you go on to some of the later chapters, I skip some of the labs. Like chapter 4, we're doing lab 14, 16, 17, and 19. And that's because the assignments get larger, they take more time. Some of the labs aren't written very well. So that's why just look at the lab list to know what you have to do. And then also with this document, I break down how the points are organized, or how they break out. I try to keep the weight the same. So participation, there's 68 points that you can earn. I multiply that by 2. The challenge ones, there's 20 points that you can earn, but I want that, I don't want you, I want them to be weighted the same. So I multiply that by 5. This Zylab, the labs are 90, are 45 points. So I multiply that by 2. So participation is usually most of your points. And then the labs and the challenges are usually around 100 points or equal points. And then we also have a quiz for each chapter. So take this document, look at each, that's your assignment list, okay? And you can also find that in, whoops, I don't know if that came up, but when you're looking in, if by the way, my screen share doesn't work or it's off the wrong screen, let me know. But you can find that if you look at your grades, you can see a list of all of the assignments that we do and how many points everything's worth. As far as turning in your assignments, I'm not going to walk through this because it takes a little bit of time and I just want to get into the chapter and go through some of the labs to get people started. But in chapter 1, or module 1, I should say, or chapter 1, do the welcome module, that's easy. In chapter 1, there's this folder here, how to submit Zybook assignments. Please look at this. There's actually a quiz in here too. There's an assignment quiz. I put nobody was doing it, so I put a quiz in there, but I just need screenshots of your labs. So Zybooks is not linked with Blackboard, so you'll go over to Zybooks, do your work. This ends up, what you see here is you end up seeing your grade. Now I see this 19, 47, and 44%. This is everybody in the class on my account. On your account, it'll be just your work. So you can, when you get this green one to 100% and the blue to 100% and your orange to 100%, when you get those to the grade you want, then take a screenshot of that, and that's what you'll upload inside of Blackboard. Okay, it's pretty, it's laid out and explained. You can use the let's see, it's laid out and explained in here in the how to submit your assignments folder. And you can actually, when you look at Blackboard, there's the participation assignment, there's the challenge assignment, and there's the lab. I broke them apart into 3 assignments based on the 3 types of things we do, but you can use the same screenshot for each of those assignments if you do it all at the end. I broke it apart into 3 assignments though, because if somebody wasn't able to do one part of it, like they only did the participation and the challenge, you can get credit for that, but not the lab. So use the same screenshot if you want for each one of those, as long as it shows the work that you've completed. The other cool thing with Zybooks though is I can go in and see every student, and then I can see how you've progressed. So I can go down and pick somebody, in here I can log to your account, and I can see, it helps if you need help too. I can look at what you've coded and stuff, but the Blackboard grades, they don't transfer over. I think that's all I want to cover for just like the general course things. The quizzes are here in Blackboard. You can use any notes you want. You can use Zybooks. If there are any problems with the quiz questions, like something was wrong with the question, or sometimes with programming, when you're looking at a question, it doesn't transfer over properly. Like this one, well, here's just it might give you a snippet of code, but maybe a parenthesis or an asterisk didn't transfer over to HTTP or to your browser properly. So if you see something like that, let me know. Or something is graded wrong, let me know. But your quizzes are in Blackboard. You can use your Zybooks. You can use any notes that you have from your reading. But everything is there. You can only submit those once. The assignments you can submit multiple times, but usually you just need to submit them one time. And then I'll take a look at your grades. I'll update the grade sheet every couple weeks. So aside from, jumping into the material, that's really the basic course kind of intro. I would take a lot more time if we were in face-to-face, or if anyone had other specific questions, but read my information is out here on how to contact me. I do prefer text messages over email. I can respond quicker to text, or at least if you text me and you say, I sent you an email, can you please look at it? Something like that is helpful. But I do have my email on my phone too. I just more often check text, and I don't mind text. You can text anytime. I keep my phone on silent, so anytime you have questions, send me a text. I can do one-on-one Zooms with you guys too, if you need help. Or if you want to meet with me a one-on-one with a Zoom, we can do that as well. But I'll try to hold weekly, or at least every other weekly, Zoom sessions to kind of cover the material. Or some of the material. In the resources folder, there's some IDEs I recommend. I don't know, I just got this PC, so I don't know what is installed on here from IT. IDEs are outside compiling environments for Python. We are going to code in the Zybooks environment, but that's not a compiler, that's not a language. We're learning Python in the Zybooks environment. If you want an outside compiler, you'll read about what compilers are, what IDEs are. I do recommend either Spider or PyCharms. Install one of these on your PC. You can code everything in there, move it over to Zybooks. You can maybe practice some other outside bigger pieces of code inside of these environments. They're not required. They're just other tools, other IDEs you can use outside of Zybooks. So I don't see any questions from anybody. So if you have any questions, let me know, but I'm gonna go over to Zybooks and we'll go through a couple of the labs. And then if that's all we have, that's it for now until I get more specific questions from people. Whoops, go away. Okay. Oh, I don't know what I did there. Come on. What? I do not want this to be up. I don't even see an X. What are you guys seeing?
Just the Zybooks break out of the chapters.
Okay, I started something weird on my computer. Thank you.
So Ivan asked a question: would you recommend Spider over Xcode as an IDE?
No, not necessarily. Whatever works best for you. If you have another browser or another compiler you use, that's great.
Are both of those IDEs free to download?
Yes. Yep. Oh my gosh, this is frustrating. Let me figure out tab. I started some Microsoft profile thing that I can't get to go away, but that's okay. Oh, I think it's, there we go. I think it's the, whatever Microsoft's browser is, but it was in a different window driving me crazy. Yeah, Python's a free language. So all of the IDEs are open source. But really, I mean, we are learning Python, which is helpful at the beginning when we're learning programming, but this is really a learn how to code class and not learn how to code Python class. Python's, it's an easier language to learn. We learned some really basic concepts, and a lot of them are used, a lot of the same ideas, like how to do loops and decisions and branches and functions and classes and objects. All of those things are used in other languages. It's just how to, then you just, after this class, you just learn how to do it in those other languages. So here we really focus on, why do we want to write a loop for this part of the code, or why do we want to do a decision here? And then we use Python to write it. But in your other programming classes, as you go on with programming, you'll learn just the syntax of how to do it in C# or Java or another language as you go on. All right, let me get this. Let me get my Zoom under control here and stop my video just so I don't have faces there. And try to pull up. Okay, now you guys, please let me know if I'm talking about something and it's something you can't see or it's not on the screen. Like if my screen goes away, let me know that. So this is the first chapter is really an introduction to Python, some basic programming. I don't know how to use these. I'm not going to take time right now to use like the whiteboard or anything in here, but for the beginning chapter, it is just general programming concepts. And ideally, or the ideal with programming is you take in some sort of data, you process it, and then you put that data out. So a lot of the labs in the beginning work is just that you run a program, the program will ask for an input, like enter in your age, or enter in a number, and then it might multiply that number by 5. So it does some sort of calculation, and then it does an output. Errors are touched on in this chapter, and then some history of programming, which is really kind of what they put in every beginning chapter of every programming language. And then we do some basic labs. The biggest problem I see, or some beginning labs, I should say, the biggest problem I see with Zybooks is understanding what they're asking. I do like the online interactive textbook, but I do think sometimes what they're asking you to do is confusing. And that's where I get a lot of the questions, like, what is it asking me to type here? I can code this, but I don't know. I have to code it in a way that Zybooks can grade it. So that's some of the things that you'll get at the beginning. So here's an example of a participation activity. These are all worth points. So you need to start these, you walk through them. This is showing you how to do input, how to do a process like a calculation, and how to do an output. So you walk through these steps, you get a number, you multiply it by 2, you get another number. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't multiply it by 2. You enter in 2 inputs, X and Y. These are lines of code that you would program. And then you add those 2 together, you store a result, and then you print it to the screen. So you do basic input, output. Now, as you walk through something like this, you get a check mark and then you get a grade as you go through all of those participations. Some of these are just questions that you have to answer in the participation. But the ideal is spend your time with those participation activities, because look at it as it's an interactive textbook. It's teaching you how to program or what it is you're doing, and asking you to interact with the book, which is kind of cool because we weren't able to do that before. And then you get points from that. So that's all of the participation. The labs are more fun, because then you get to code something. So let's look at, let's see, I have a question on 1.3. Let me look at what my other questions were from people. I think it was just 1.3. Oh, 1.3 and 1.3.8. Okay. So when you get onto a lab, but this one is still participation, I guess, but here's the first program. So you can change things in here, go back to the default, whatever, it's allowed to be edited. But the ideal of a program is you have variables. These are values, that variables or words that store numbers, and then we're going to do something with those numbers, like a calculation, or it could be some sort of process, and then we're printing it out. So we have your hourly wage, we have how many hours you worked, how many weeks of the year, and we're finding out our annual salary. Everything in programming works sequentially, so you have to have some values, you have to do some sort of input or assignment statements in order to do number 4. So you couldn't do this calculation to calculate your salary if you didn't have assignments given to wage, hours, and weeks. So everything starts at the top, goes line by line to the bottom. So now that when we get to line 6, salary was calculated up here, line 6 just prints something to the screen. The line 5, this is called white space. It doesn't matter if you have one there, if you have a bunch of them there, it's not part of your program, it's not part of your code, it doesn't take up space. It's just how you want to separate things out. So that doesn't make a difference. It doesn't do like double spacing in your code or anything. And then what line 8 is doing is changing how many hours you work. So what this program is showing you is if I have different inputs, I'm going to have a different output and how things run. So at 40 hours a week, I'm going to make $41,000, but at 35 hours a week, I'm going to make $36,000. So as you change your input, you have different output, and also everything's sequential. So lab 1-3, I had some questions. Some people had some questions on this. So this is probably where we start with our first challenge activity. Yep. So participation, this is looking at how to use the print statement and what a string literal is. Anything in quotation marks is called a string literal. It's just printed to the screen. So like this one, select how do you use the print statement? You can use single quotes or double quotes. By the way, there's the only difference between single quotes and double quotes is that if there's a special character in your string literal, then you have to use double quotes. A special character is something like a parenthesis or an apostrophe. So I usually use double quotes, but you got to look at these pretty clearly. So this isn't the how do you print welcome exclamation point to the screen? It's not this one because there's no quotes around the string. It's not number 2 because there's a double quote here and a single quote there. It is number 3, but you could also write the same sentence and use double quotes. The same thing would work. So on this one, this participation, what it's saying is do a print statement that prints the word hello. Now, when you're using Zybooks, it is looking for something very specific. It's looking for a capital H. So if you didn't do a capital H and you wanted to check your answer, you're going to get that wrong because it wants you to do H, capital H-E-L-L-O. So you have to code. That's what I was talking about, where at the beginning, learning how to use Zybooks can be kind of frustrating because you have to code exactly for what it's looking for. Now here, if you get an error, you'll get some support. So it says, like, I have my double quote and then a single quote, and it says, here's your answer, here's your expected answer. So I can see that I have something wrong. So I needed to change that to a single quote. Likewise, like look at here, I use double quotes. Remember I said it doesn't matter if you use single or double up here. I'm using double quotes down here and it's still correct, even though it was looking for single quotes, but it gets the same output. Double and single usually mean the same. So I usually use double quotes, but basically what you're typing in this box has to match up with one of the things that's in the back end of this program. That's the answer. So as we're learning Zybooks, you'll learn that there's more than one correct answer a lot of times. Just because there's more than one way to code. Just like there's more than one way to say hello to somebody. This first challenge, so that's a little bit about how to use Zybooks. This first challenge here, let's see, what are they looking for? Challenge 131.
I think this challenge was just to test your attention to detail about where you're putting white space and making sure you have the right white space where it belongs.
Exactly. Yep. Good pointing that out. And it even notes that white space is blank spaces. So use the keyword print, and then you could use double or single quotes. It doesn't matter. But if you did 3, 2, 1, go, that is going to not be correct because white space matters. if it's in the string literal. So when I type something and I hit run, it's going to check my solution. And it's going to pass it or not. Right. You can see here, it says not all passed because here's my output, 3, 2, 1, go. But here's my expected output, 3 space 2 space 1, and then a capital G and then an O. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to make a change, and then I'm going to run my program again. And that's how the challenges work. You code something, you run it and test it. If you have an error, you look at what the errors are telling you, you try to change it. And here's my expected output. All my tests passed. Check, check, and I get a grade. It does a grade on that part of the code. So somebody had a question on that one. Let me see what specifically what the question was. Hold on. All right, do this. Well, somebody had asked so what they had done wrong. I don't see their code, so I don't know, but here's the solution. So whoever texts me that question, hopefully that you can see the solution. You need to put spaces between 3, 2, and 1. The other correct answer for this one would be just using single quotes. That would also work. Okay, this next one here is having you practice white space and output statements again. It just wants you to print asterisks to make this kind of figure 8. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code because every line is going to be another thing. And we're going to also work on using the end, or there's different ways you can go down a line. So we could just do a different print statement for each one. And you're basically just doing 5 lines of code. So we want 5 asterisks there. We want another print statement here where we do 1 asterisk. And then we have 1, 2, 3 spaces, the other asterisk, quotes, and so on. So you just keep building that. So just practicing your output, practicing. You can see here I started it. It's not passed because I didn't finish it. So you do 3 more lines of code. Just checking your outputs, checking your spaces, checking how to print it, how to do a print statement. And again, you can use single or double quotes. Okay. Now, this next line has you looking at, or this next participation has you looking at how the end works, which is putting a new line or a return at the end of that statement. So every print statement by itself goes down a new line. So I do this print, and then my next line of code, a return is automatically ended or applied to the end of that. So when I look at my output, it goes down a line to print the second line, and it's not continuing on the same line. There's different ways to do that. Each call to print is a new line. So you put one on each new line and then it has the return automatically. But as a programmer, you can add the end and then a space within the single quotes. And that will keep your lines separated by a space. So hello, comma, end equals single quotes. We'll get an output like this. Hello there, and then you put a space in here and it won't return. It'll say my name is Carl, all in one line. So that's one way by using the end statement, okay? There's also new lines that you can do. So here, this says the wage is print wage 20. So that's on the same line. If you didn't have this end equals single quote or space single quote, you need a space in there. If you didn't have that, it would say wage is 20 and 20 would be on the second line. So the next few labs look at how to change the output to match what's expected. So let's look at one or two of those. Somebody had a question on 138. So let's go down to that one. So here's an example. Well, let's go down to 138. Participation. I think it was the challenge. Actually, let me stop here on 134 because I do get some questions on that, but I'll go down to that other one too. 134. Hold on one second. Okay, 134 is saying the following program reads in two numbers from the input. Here's our input statements right here. When what you had read earlier is when you're taking in a number, you have to convert it to an int. This is really important. Everything in Zybook, everything in Python is read in as a string, which is a series of characters. If you're dealing with numbers, in order to do a calculation with it, you have to convert it to a number. So when I do my input, if it were a name, if I wanted to take in somebody's name, like my first name, I would just say my first name equals input. And that would stop the program and ask to enter in a string like Katie or Joseph or whatever. But anytime you're taking in a number like number 1, you have to convert it to an integer input in order to do a calculation with it. So there, depending on the type of variable or value that you're entering it in, you use input a little different. If it's a string, you just do input. If it's a number, you have to convert it to an int or a float or double, something that's a decimal value. But here we're just going to take in two integers. So we take in number 1, number 2. I'm gonna take out that first thing. And convert it to an input or an integer. Take that one out. And then we're just going to print the value of num1 plus num2. So just like it says. So copy the code provided to see how this code is executed. You don't even have to code anything here. You can just copy that just like it says, paste it here, run it. That's your, I mean, it codes it for us. So that's all it wanted you to do there, but it's showing you here what's happening. The user's taking in a number, taking in a second number, adding them together, and then printing them to the screen. A Zybook supplies input. So what it also set up here is, whoops, I went the wrong way, sorry. What it also set up here is to don't ask for a prompt or something like that. So we're not saying to the user, enter in number 1, we're just taking it in. And that's when Zybooks will insert a number for us. But this next part is reading user input. Well, after 3 point, the part after this will be asking for a prompt. So 135, it says take in 3 integers without a prompt. So do the same thing and then print the product of those 3. So similar to what we just did in that last one, we're going to take in num1 equals input or int inputs num2 and num3. So we have 3 numbers, right? I want to show you something and how I'm coding this too. And then we're going to print our output as the product. So we're just going to print, just like we did up here, where we said num1 plus num2, we're going to multiply these 3 together. So num1 times num2 times num3. And let's see if we run it, what happens. This is good. This is good because this is what shows when you have an error. And you'll get a lot of errors when you're coding in the beginning, just because you make typos, or just like I did, I was not typing the right thing. So I put input instead of input. So look at, when you do get an error, look at what it's telling you. You can see my errors on line number where it says num3. And I can see right there, okay, that didn't even come up the right color. So that's an error. I just did a typo. And I didn't notice it before I ran it. So it's okay. We get these are called syntax errors. We want to check for, that's why we run our program, to check for syntax errors. And then my input was, if my input is 235, my output's 30. If it's 649, it's 269 or 216. You know, whatever my input, Zybook supplies input when we're not prompting for an input is what's going on here. Um, 136 is asking for, I don't usually get a lot of questions for this one, so I'm not going to do this, but it's asking for, you know, to print out a statement that says this cake was great. Look for a specific, use a print statement, check your caps, your white spaces, and that's good. So you do one thing and then you do next, and it goes over to another thing, it asks you to do another thing, and you keep going through that one. 1, 3, 8. Let me check my email real quick. Uh, 1, 3, 8. Oh, I think I answered that. Is the Eleanor had a question on 1, 3, 8. I think I answered that about the end equals blank. Where is 1, 3, 8? Who had? I think I answered that though already. Let's look at, let's see some of the other common questions. I don't get a lot of questions in this error section. There's different type of errors we have in programming. Syntax errors are errors in our code that we need to fix. Logic errors are errors in how we design our program, how we structured it. So, you know, we might say, we might want it to go in one direction, but we've coded it properly. It just goes in the wrong direction. That's a logic error. So you'll look at, in this section, you'll look at different type of errors and troubleshoot some things there. IDEs are discussed, programs, and this is just some history on programming. Nothing really with just some basic. This is the part of the chapter that they put in every beginning programming book. So let's jump down to some of the labs, because I do get, let's see, I do get some of the same questions. I'm just gonna look at the assignment page real quick. It says to do, okay, 112. So theoretically or ideally at this point, you've gone through all of the participation. Some things are actual participation, some are questions. You've gone through the challenges. We did 1, 3 together, and now we're gonna hit the labs. So the labs are where you've now learned how to code. Now you're going to code. So we're going to start with 112. Let me get back to Zybooks here. I do think you have to do this one. This is just doing the print statements where you're printing out asterisks. It's really just how to use print. Okay. I think I've hit on all of these, but do take a minute when you start the labs to look at how Zybooks works, or how the Zybook labs work. So that's what this first one's about. You know, when you click run, it'll show you output. Sometimes the input boxes supplies input depending on what's going on. So this first one, we're in develop mode, so we can code things. If your program requires input, you're going to put it down here. This one does ask for a number. So if you don't supply it, it will put a number in there for you. Or you can put an input number in there. We run the program. Check any errors. Okay, we're looking for a number, so let's put in 15. We run the program. So line 1 is asking for an input. Line 2 is taking that input and finding the square of it. And then line 4 is printing it out to the screen. So when how the labs work is you code something, you practice in develop mode, you run it so you get the right output, and then you go over to submit mode, and then you submit for grading. When you submit for grading, it will go through all of the checks and give you a grade. Okay, so here I didn't get it right, so I have to code it because I got 0 out of 3. So I didn't put an input in mine. So here's my input. If my input's 2, my output was 4, but this wants it to go down to the next line. So it says fix this error. So we're going to take that out of there so it does go down to the next line. So now we can submit it again. Should pass the test. So now you'll see it passed the first test. So the Zybook does grade for you automatically. I didn't read all my instructions up there, but when you go through each of the instructions and you'll get a grade up here. When that's green, that's when you go on to the next one. So that this lab here shows you how to work within Zybooks. This 13 is more training on how to use Zybooks for input and output. So please go through that. And then 14, more training. I think 15 is the first real lab. Yeah. So 15 is the first real lab. It's how the labs work again is it wants you to do something. So this lab here, you'll read it. It'll say write a program that prints hello world, ends with a new line. So we don't want to use that end equals single quote space single quote at the end. We just want to print our first program. So we're in develop mode. So we'll do print hello world, exclamation point, single quote or double quote I used. So I'm in develop mode. I don't have any input in this program. So I'm going to go to submit mode, submit for grading. Submitting. Here's my output. I got 10 out of 10. I'm finished with that lab. So again, you're going to read the instructions for what the lab tells you to do. Sometimes you'll have input. Sometimes, you code it in develop mode, and then you can run it in develop mode to test it. And then when you're ready to submit it, or you think it's ready, you go over to submit mode and run it, submit for grading. So it goes through different options, submits that. If you don't get a full score when you submit for grading, go back to develop mode, code, fix any errors, whatever you need to do, go back and submit it again, and it'll overwrite that. No parking. This lab should be pretty easy, so I'm going to leave this one to you. You're going to write a series of print statements that will generate this exact output. So again, there's 2 leading spaces here. There's 2 spaces back here. We don't have to put those there. It'll just continue them. Note your spaces between here and here. Just using the print statement. Code it in develop mode, test it, then go over to submit mode for your grade. Lab 117 is our first input lab. So we're going to do input and output together. So we'll write a program that inputs. I don't see anyone asking questions, so I think I'm still good, but we're going to write a program that will take in some input, takes in a first name as an input, and outputs this welcome message to the screen. So my input would be, you know, like, what is the first name? And then I say, hello, Pat, and welcome to CS Online. So here I want to code that. Now notice my part of the code is already there for me. So my input statement is already there. It already asks for the name. I'm not going to have a prompt. So I'm just going to practice my print again, where I do hello. Well, let's see. Then we want to put our username. And I want to practice continuing this line. So it says, what lab is this? 117.1. So it shows, so my output will match exactly what the expected output is. Which in this case, I wonder if this is the, did we do the 18 as well? Can't remember. So we're continuing on. We do a comma then in between each thing. I need to put a space there, I think, but I might be wrong. We're gonna find out if I'm wrong because it'll tell us. Okay. So my username was already taken in. Here's how I think I would code this. I don't know if I need a space there or not. I don't know. I'm using double quotes instead of single quotes. And I'm separating this string literal from this string and this other string literal with commas. So I'm not sure if all that's correct. I'll put a name down here. Let's see. Julie is my input. I'm in develop mode, so I'm going to run the program and I'm going to check my output. Now notice it says, hello, Julie, and welcome to CS Online. I can tell in this output that there's 2 spaces there. So before I do submit for grading, I'm going to take this space out. That's not needed. And then I'm going to run it again and I can change my input to Maisie.
So why were there spaces included in the input on either side there when you didn't type them?
Because the print statement, when you go from, see, it might be the double quotes. Let me change it to single quotes. It's either the double quotes or that the print statement automatically puts them in there.
Where there's a comma.
Yes.
Well, isn't there a space after the comma before user?
Yes, but that's not part of the string literal. It's not part of what's in quotes. So that doesn't matter.
Okay,
But the spaces in here would matter because they're within the quotes. But here doesn't matter. It's not going to show to the screen.
mm,
I
I'm
noticed
gonna-
this on one of the participation ones that it was adding in spaces where I wasn't putting any in the string literal, and I was getting very confused by that.
Yeah, I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna change this to single quotes and see if it does it. It might be the different, and that might be the difference, or it's just how Python works with print statements. It looks like that's just how they work.
So you reckon it's Python, not Zybooks that's doing that?
Yeah, it's just Python because
Mm.
now hello Maisie. Anytime that there's a comma, it's gonna insert a space between that variable. There is a way though where you could delete that space.
Yeah.
I think it's called an escape sequence. I had to look, but I think if you did like a \n or something like that, it would remove it.
you could also do a raw string, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah. And also it didn't make a difference here if I use single or double quotes. I like why I use double quotes is because if you wanted to have this online quoted, or if you had somebody's name like Katie's class like that, because I have this single quote here as an apostrophe, it's reading it as the end of this one. So that's why I use double quotes instead of single quotes, because then I can put whatever I want in my string literal. But there are both ways. So now you'll notice that this isn't now a special character, it's just part of the string. So that will not give me the exact output, but that will print that apostrophe, whereas if it were single quotes, it wouldn't. It would generate errors. So when this is exactly how you want it, then you can submit for grading. I think this won't be right because I added that other stuff in there. Yeah. But that's one thing I don't like about Zybooks is this is correct. The code is correct. But it's not exactly what they want, so it marks it wrong. If you were coding in Python, an IDE like Spider or some other compiler, it's okay. I would never mark that wrong because it does exactly what I ask you to do. It's just you're adding something to the string. So Zybooks marks it wrong because it doesn't match exactly what they're looking for. That's one of the downfalls of it, but it is helpful to learn. Because now I have 10 out of 10. My output matches exactly what's expected. I'm good to go.
And that coding trail, is that something that we need to pay attention to, or it was up a little?
Where?
That coding trail of your work.
Oh, no.
Okay.
It's not anything that I look into. I suppose if no, don't worry about for our class. If you wanted to figure out what you did, or you did something, and these are small programs, so we don't need to follow back. Usually we can figure out what's happened, but that's what that is.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe for like chapter 18, it might be useful, but for the beginning, I think we're probably good. It is nice, like though, if there's somebody cheating or something, I can look at their things, but I usually don't deep down dive into somebody's code unless there's a problem with what they're trying to figure out. I can't remember if I required 18. I think I did. No, I actually didn't require the last lab. So the labs that you have to do, the 12, 13, those are and 14, those are the training videos. Hello World, we did. No parking, you can do easy on your own. And then that 17 we just did. I didn't require 118. But give it a try if you want. What you're trying to do is, if there's 4 words that are input, like Eric Chipotle 12 and cars, you're going to put it in an output, a certain type of output. So type the code for your 4 read values here. That's going to be inputs for first name, generic location, whole number, and plural noun. The main thing with this one, if you do this one, is your inputs are going to be different. This is going to be input first name. This is going to be an input for generic location. And then 6, remember, is a number, so you need to convert that to an integer. That's it. So I don't require 18. It's easy to do though. Give it a try. And that's really the chapter. Do you guys have any other questions that have been, those of you who are here? Cool. Thank you, Cole. I see your note. Thank you, Matt. Thank you guys for coming. I will save this recording and I'll share it with the rest of the class. I want to see, it's a short week. We're already on Tuesday because of the holiday and the class wasn't open until Wednesday. So I don't know that next week we're going to jump into chapter 2 with this one. Will take a little bit longer. So I don't know if I'll have a Zoom on chapter 2. If I do next week, it'll be at the end of next week, but it might be at the beginning of the following week. Just because I want everyone to get their Zybooks, get it activated. There's still about 20 people who need to do that. But remember, if you're ready to jump in, go ahead. Everything's out there. You can go through the class quick. You can work on things extra if you want. Oh, one other note on Zybooks. I think if there's anything further down here that says hidden by instructor and you want to see it, just let me know. I can open it up for you, because there's a lot of additional labs for things, and by default, I don't know why, but they are hidden. So it's kind of, I have to go into each thing, make it visible, but I'm happy to do that if there's parts of the Zybooks. I mean, you've paid for the whole Zybook. So if there's parts down here that you want to practice, things that you want to do, and it says hidden, just let me know and I'll open it up. There's a lot of additional labs to practice, like if you want additional labs for chapter 1, you can go down to section 19. Here, I'll open all these right now. And you can do some practice there. Now, I know that this is the first chapter. It was kind of light. But this, I don't want to say this class is hard. It can be overwhelming though. So I don't assign more things. Some of you guys might be like, that was so easy, I'm ready to do more. I don't assign more because there is a lot of work as we get into it. Especially because it's an introduction to programming too. Some people have never coded. You're not expected to have any programming when you come into here. And if you've never coded before, this is all very new. If you're familiar with programming, you're like, this is easy, it's a piece of cake, I get it. But if you don't even know what a variable is, then it's a little bit hard and it can be frustrating. So there's other things, if you want more challenging things, use Zybooks to your advantage. There's a lot of other resources, things you can do. And I've coded for probably 20 years or so. So let me know if I'll help you with anything. If you want to talk about some of these other concepts down here, I'm happy to do that with you too. There, I just opened up. So additional labs, 19 matches up with chapter 1, 20 matches up with chapter 2, 21 matches up with chapter 3. Those are good additional labs down there if you want some work. More fun. I love programming. I think programming is way more fun than like networking or Linux or server even. I just like it because you're coding something and you're getting a result. It's kind of fun. But if you're a geek, so and that's okay. What do we do for extra credit? I don't think I have a lot of extra credit in this class, but if you do all the labs, you get an A. It is kind of an easy A because you can do the labs to get 100%. And quizzes aren't worth too much where they're going to bring your grade down. The midterm and the final are questions that you could use your book and notes on. The only way that people don't get 100% is they don't turn in a lab. If you turn in every single lab, you'll get an A in the class. So there are, I think in the chapter 5 and 6, there might be some extra credit labs, like some of the labs that I don't require. If you want to do them, you can get extra credit for. Okay, guys, it's 3 o'clock. So thank you. We've been on for about an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. I think the 5 of you came. Well, maybe the next one, when we kind of go into chapter 2, we'll do an evening. We'll try an evening, but usually an evening, it's kind of crazy. It doesn't matter. The only days that don't work well for me is Wednesdays, because those are my face-to-face class days. But I hope you all have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Nice to meet you guys.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.